Hi there and welcome. Today I am going to explain an American neo-noir psychological crime thriller film 7. Spoilers alert, watch out and take care. In an unknown city of constant rain and urban decay, Detective William Somerset is preparing to retire and leave the horrors of the city. Before he retires, Somerset is called to a crime scene where a wife shot her husband. As Somerset investigates, he asks Detective Taylor if the couple kids saw the incident, which surprises the detective. Taylor boldly tells Somerset how happy everyone would be when he retires, saying he always asks weird questions. While talking, a newly transferred Detective Mills arrives and introduces himself to Somerset. Somerset is partnered with Detective David Mills, a cocky, young and short-tempered cop from Springfield, a comparatively small town. Though they are assigned to be partners, they don't see each other eye to eye, especially with younger Mills' impatient and hot-headed personality. Somerset offers to take Mills out for a drink so they can talk and get to know each other, but Mills is too eager to get right to work and is unimpressed with Somerset's attempt to mentor him. With 7 days remaining until his retirement, Somerset reminds Mills that he will be the one calling the shots between the two of them. Somerset and Mills officially starts working as partners on a rainy day. The responding officer at the crime scene tells them that nothing has been touched. The two investigate the murder of a morbidly obese man who was fed spaghetti until a kick to his stomach burst him open. Somerset and Mills enters the victim's filthy residence, and inside, they see insects everywhere along with canned spaghetti sauces on the shelf. The victim, an extremely obese man, sitting on a chair with his hands and feet bound, while his face buried in his food. Under the table, Mill sees a bucket of a victim's vomit. Somerset asks if there is blood in it, but Mill replies he didn't see any. He then asks if Somerset thinks it's poison, but before Somerset could answer, the examiner arrives. While the doctor examines the victim, Somerset orders Mill to help the officers question the neighbors, and although he is clearly annoyed, he complies. In the morgue, the coroner tells Somerset and Mills that the victim has been dead for a long time, and it was not because of poison. Coroner tries explaining the cause of death, and putting it simply, Somerset thinks that victim died from eating until he burst. Somerset then asks how he got his bruises on his head, but the coroner tells him he hasn't figured this out yet. Somerset assumes it was from a gun pressed to his head, which the coroner deems the possibility if it was pushed hard enough. Looking closely at the victim's head, Mill announces that they have a case of homicide. Back at the station, Somerset, Mills, and the police captain talk about the victim's death. Somerset reads the autopsy report saying the killer took his time in making the victim suffer by forcing him to keep eating. The victim's throat was also swollen, likely from the strain and effort. When he passed out, the killer kicked him, making him burst and die. When Somerset tells them that the killer's actions have a meaning, the captain dismisses his idea. Somerset's requests for reassignment surprising both the captain and Mills. He says that he doesn't want that case to be his last and that it's too soon for a young detective like Mills. However, the captain rejects his request since there's no one else to take care for them. With his ego hurt, Mill asks the captain to just give him the case and let Somerset go, but the captain rejects this too, saying that he is putting Mills on something else. Somerset investigates the murder. On Tuesday, reporters flock to the second crime scene. When Mill arrives, he finds the forensic experts going through the place. With nothing to report yet, Mills instructs the guys to have a break while he examines the scene. He stands in the middle of the room, looking at the word "greed" written on the floor. On the office table he reads a woman photograph with circles drawn around her eyes using blood. At the precinct, Captain informs Somerset that criminal defense attorney Eli Gould has been murdered. He reports that someone broke into the attorney's apartment that morning, bled him to death, and wrote the word "greed" on the floor, piquing the detective's interest. The captain also says the Mills is leading the investigation, and as they talk, he tells Somerset that he doesn't think that detective is actually going to quit. Gould was forced to carve a pound of flesh off of his body and subsequently bled to death. The police captain gives Somerset an evidence container with 3 slivers of a plastic-like material found in the stomach of the obese man, which he was forced to consume along with the spaghetti. Somerset returns to the obese man's house, looking for any clue they might have missed. Sure enough, he notices some drag marks on the floor matching the plastic material fed to the victim. Knowing the slivers resulted from the refrigerator being moved, Somerset looks behind it. He finds the word "gluttony" written behind the fridge in grease, along with a note containing a quote from Milton's Paradise Lost. Somerset theorizes that a serial killer is basing his crimes on the 7 deadly sins, with 5 more to go. The captain tells him that he is confused. So Somerset explains there are 7 deadly sins and that the first cases represent gluttony and greed. The other 5 are sloth, wrath, pride, lust, and envy. And he concludes that they can expect 5 more cases like the other 2. To gain more insight into the cases, Somerset goes to the library to read the books like Daunt Divine Comedy and Geoffrey Chaucer Canterbury Tales. He makes a list of books for Mills for which he believes might be useful for solving this. Meanwhile, Mills goes through the evidence they have and learns that the second victim was forced to mutilate himself. As Somerset finishes his research, he photocopies some pages from the books and places them on Mills' table. To give Mills and Somerset a chance to get along with each other, Mills' wife, Tracy Mills, invites Somerset over for dinner. While they are eating, an elevated train passes by on the track nearby, making the building and all its contents and inhabitants tremble. The couple mention that's why the realtor was so nervous for them to see the apartment quickly, trying to hide the proximity of the train. After Tracy goes to bed, Mills and Somerset examine case evidence from the 2 scenes. They find a picture of Gould's wife with blood painted around the eyes. Believing that this means she is supposed to spot something about the murder scene that nobody else would, the detectives have a distraught Mrs. Gould look at the pictures in a safe house, and she notices an abstract painting that is upside down. Brushing powder on the wall behind the painting, Somerset finds fingerprints outlining the words "help me." After running the fingerprints through a FIS, the prints are traced a day later to a pedophile named Victor who escaped conviction for the rape of a minor due to the efforts of his lawyer, Eli Gould, the greed victim. SWAT and the detectives raid his apartment and find Victor to be the sloth victim, having been bound to his bed for 1 year to the day, as evidenced by pictures at the scene, one taken every day from the day he is discovered. Remarkably, he is still alive, but suffering from severe physical and mental deterioration. His hand was cut off and pushed onto the wall behind the painting to leave the prints. Mills and Somerset ask to interrogate Victor in the hospital, but the doctor says that he's chewed off his tongue and that his brain is mush from the ordeal. That evening, Tracy calls Somerset and requests that he meet with her. The next morning, Somerset meets Tracy in a diner where she tells him how miserable she is in the city. At Somerset's urging, Tracy reveals the truth of her request to meet. She is pregnant, afraid of raising a child where they now live, and afraid of telling David. Somerset advises her to tell her husband only if she decides to have it, and he sets himself as an example. He insisted his partner have an abortion, that he finally convinced her, and now he is remorseful. Later that day, using a contact in the FBI, Somerset gets a library list of people who have borrowed books related to the 7 deadly sins. The list leads the detectives to a man named John Doe, whose apartment they visit soon after. Doe, his face hidden, sees them as he comes home, pulls out a gun and begins shooting. After a short chase, Doe hits Mills with a tire iron, keeps him subdued at gunpoint, but lets him live and suddenly flees. Mills wants to force their way into Doe's apartment, believing that they have probable cause because Doe shot at them. Somerset tries to talk him down, saying the method they used to find Doe's apartment was illegal and that Doe would go free if they caught him. Mills kicks the door in anyway. While they search the apartment, after bribing a resident to claim she had called the detectives about Doe, they find notebooks of his thoughts, trophies of the crimes and a picture of Mills fighting off Doe. John Doe calls the apartment and congratulates the detectives on them finding him and apologizes for hitting Mills, also telling the young detective that he admires him greatly. Their actions, he says, have caused him to change his plans, and he hangs up. They also find a photo of a young woman, a prostitute who they believe may be the next victim. A receipt leads them to a S&M leather shop where Doe placed an order for a sexual device. The girl is soon found dead in a room with lust written on the door. Also found in the room is a visibly shaken man forced by Doe at gunpoint to wear and use the device, a large strap-on dildo with a blade attachment, to rape and kill the girl. The owner of the place, Wild Billy, Martin Serene, can give no clue to the physical aspect or the briefcase John Doe used, as every customer used to carry special clothes or equipment into the place. The next morning, a model is found dead with pride written on the crime scene. Her nose has been cut off to spite her face, upon which Doe gave her the choice of suicide by sleeping pills or calling for help and living scarred. She chose the former and swallowed the pills. As the detectives return to the police headquarters, John Doe walks up to them, his hands bleeding. He shaved the skin from his fingertips to avoid identification and gives himself up. He talks to his lawyer and agrees that if he can take Somerset and Mills to 2 more bodies, he will confess to all the murders. Doe's lawyer also warns that if Somerset and Mills don't agree, Doe will plead insanity and the last two victims may never be found. Wanting a confession, the detectives agree. Somerset and Mills both have microphones taped to their chests, so the rest of the task force can monitor their conversation with Doe. During the prep, Mills tries to tell Somerset about a concern he has with Tracy, but can't bring himself to talk fully about it. As the three travel to the desert outskirts of the city in a car, they are trailed by a police helicopter for security. Doe explains his rationale behind the murders as a way of showing people the truly evil nature of the world, as well as his desire to punish the wicked. He goes on to say he will be remembered and admired for what he has done, having been chosen to do so. As Doe speaks, the disgusted Mills is driven to rage and screams at Doe, while Somerset remains calm, but plainly worried. Once they reach the outskirts, Doe directs them to a specific spot near some power cable towers. The detectives walk Doe out to an open spot. After a few moments, a van appears, and Somerset stops it several hundred yards away, leaving Mills behind to cover Doe. The driver claims someone paid him $500 to deliver a box to Mills at this place at exactly 7 o'clock. As Somerset opens the box, he recoils in horror from what he sees inside. As he races back to Mills and desperately yells for him to throw his gun away, Doe states to Mills that he admires Mills' life to the point of being envious of his wife and the love they share. He goes further, saying he visited Mills' home and that he tried to play husband with Tracy that day but it didn't work out and he took a souvenir instead, her pretty head. It was Doe's plan that Mills will kill him, as Doe himself was guilty of envy, jealous of Mills' simpler life. He also reveals to Mills that Tracy was pregnant and that she begged to be kept alive for the child's sake. Mills, despite the pleading of Somerset, is so devastated by his wife's death and the knowledge that she was pregnant that he shoots Doe in the head, Doe closing his eyes to receive his punishment. In killing Doe in vengeance, Mills comes to embody the sin of wrath, completing Doe's masterpiece. Somerset can only stand by, helpless to do anything. After a catatonic Mills is taken away, their captain tells Somerset that they'll take care of Mills, knowing the jury will condemn him. That's it for today. Make sure to like and subscribe for more videos like this.